Hi everyone, I'm Dom Griffin, I'm a film critic, and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do where we talk about new movies, old movies, screenplay analysis, that sort of thing. So if you like movies and film culture and like to see people pick it apart, please consider subscribing. So today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 new to me watches that I had in 2020. So for the last few years, since I've been on Letterboxd and using the platform extensively to log and diary every movie that I watch, I've started creating a list at the end of the year of movies that are new to me, movies that I watched for the first time, even if they weren't new release films in that given year. Like in 2020, I watched 448 movies. I think about 150 of those were rewatches, like movies I'd seen before, and about 120-ish of them were movies that came out in 2020. So the vast majority of them were older movies, not necessarily like 1920s older, but just older. And, you know, a lot of those movie experiences are good ones. They're like very strong ones, and like they mean a lot to me, and I want to be able to catalog them, especially since it's like January now and there's not like a lot of new movies coming out and people might be looking for recommendations for things. And I feel like the 10 movies that I've chosen here, in addition to being movies I really cared about personally and enjoyed, there's also a lot of variety amongst them. So I feel like if you're looking for something to watch this week, one of these 10 movies will probably appeal to you. And most of them are available on streaming services or easily rentable. Also, just I feel like the tone of my last like 4 or 5 videos has been like pretty negative, and it's nice to just try to put something up that's like, hey, here's stuff I like, so people can understand that I do in fact like things. So it's 10 movies. Some of them are going to get a little bit more airtime than others, but they're all movies I stand by and fully recommend. The first of these movies is 2008's Hunger, the directorial debut of director Steve McQueen, which I went back and watched for the first time in preparation for watching his Small Axe series. Up until this point, Hunger was the only Steve McQueen feature I hadn't seen, and honestly, what a debut. Its brevity, clarity, and intensity totally sucked me in. Of the 3 collabs that McQueen made with actor Michael Fassbender, I still prefer Shame, his movie about sex addiction, but Hunger is such a sharp and affecting film, chronicling the life and tragic death of IRA member Bobby Sands in prison after a hunger strike, that I have to include it here. The obvious highlight in this movie is the 17-minute long take between Fassbender and the priest played by Liam Cunningham, a scene that draws you in so strongly it's a good several minutes before you even realize there hasn't been a cut in ages. You know, I like 12 Years a Slave as much as the next guy, but it's astonishing to me that the movie that won McQueen a Best Picture Oscar is in fact his worst. Hunger is fantastic. It didn't make the list, but I did watch The Hunger, Tony Scott's directorial debut, which is like a really dope vampire movie with David Bowie, and that movie is awesome, and it was a part of a larger sort of Tony Scott retrospective I gave myself this year, where I rewatched movies of his and filled in some filmography blanks I hadn't done yet. And that brings us to the next movie, which is 2010's Unstoppable, Tony Scott's unfortunately last movie. Unstoppable, the runaway train thriller, is an incredible movie. As I said, I did a bit of a deep dive on Tony Scott classics this year, and I just miss this man so much. I miss him putting out a movie every couple of years, and Unstoppable, in a lot of ways, feels like an appropriate movie for this master to have closed his career on. It's got all the things you love in a Tony Scott film. It's got Denzel Washington, strong action geography, and a palpable sense of cinematic glee. Only Tony Scott could take a movie about 2 guys stopping a train from killing people and make it feel this vital and exhilarating and honestly special. Like, look, I get the distinction between saying films versus movies is dumb, but Tony Scott made fucking movies, and I think the world is worse off without him in it doing what he does best. Man, I really miss that dude. The next movie I'm not going to go into too much detail about because I already kind of covered it pretty extensively in my David Lynch video from last year, but Mulholland Drive was such an experience for me having watched it that I feel like I can't not put it on the list. I don't know why it took me so long to finally see Mulholland Drive, but I'm really glad I did, and it's only grown in estimation for me in the months since viewing it. It's just such a strange and stirring, hypnotic kind of picture. I haven't forgotten my promise to do a video about Twin Peaks: The Return, by the way. I just don't think I'm mentally ready to embark on that particular quest just yet, but trust me, it's coming. Get subscribed so you'll be one of the first people to see it when it does drop. Also, it's David Lynch's birthday as I record this, so happy birthday, you beautiful bastard. The next film I want to highlight is a 1998 thriller called Cop, starring James Woods. I can't stand James Woods in real life because he's a major creep, and as is well documented on this channel, I'm not a big fan of the police in general, but I fucking love cop movies, even bad ones, and I especially love them when they're sleazy and rugged and kind of fucked up. And when it comes to sleazy, rugged, fucked up movies, Woods excels. From Videodrome to his turn in Casino as the worst movie character in the history of movie characters, Woods is just especially great in movies like this, and Cop is no exception. He plays an LAPD detective trying to solve a grisly murder mystery and just kills it in every single scene. The movie itself isn't the most original or mind-blowing or anything like that, but in my opinion, it's an exemplary genre exercise. Just real good shit. Switching gears a little bit, over the last few years, I've tried to make a concerted effort to watch more documentaries because I don't like them very much. Like, I'm not someone who watches lots of documentaries or docuseries, docudramas, any of that stuff. It's just not really for me. Typically, I will only watch a documentary if I feel like it is covering a subject that I'm already predisposed to being interested in. I don't really give non-traditional documentaries much of a chance, but I've been trying to change that. Over the last few years, I've definitely upped my documentary viewing significantly. And I decided to put a documentary on this list because, well, it kind of stood out to me. If you follow this channel, something you may not know about me is that I'm a bit of a gadget nerd, and if I wasn't such a broke boy, there's an alternate reality out there where this channel is me reviewing new smartphones and stuff instead of movies, you know, getting my MKBHD on. And to that end, I must include the documentary General Magic about the electronics company that basically invented the smartphone in 1994. Far too early for the world-changing device to take hold or become a successful product. It's a bit of a vanilla documentary, to be sure, because it mostly is just talking heads about like a bunch of nerdy people you don't know talking about like how they built phones and stuff. But a couple of interviews with folks like Andy Hertzfeld and Joanna Hoffman, as well as illuminating revelations like how the godfather of Android, Andy Rubin, and chief iPhone architect Tony Fadell worked across a desk from each other at this company, really makes this a must-watch if you're into geeky stuff like that. This is also the year where I first got around to watching Hayao Miyazaki's directorial debut, the 1979 film Castle of Cagliostro, the classic Lupin III film that put the legendary animator on the map in the first place. I helped work on a Ghibli retrospective, one of the other sites I write for, and seeing this for the first time was so eye-opening. The specific way in which Miyazaki rewrites the source material to blend noir and the heist film with the aesthetics and iconography of the fairy tale proved to be particularly affecting to me. Not to mention that the movie is just so inventive and thrilling to behold. An absolute banger. But that is probably not a surprise to all the normal people in the world who got around to this movie years before me. Seriously, the opening sequence is just fantastic. How I came to this next film is sort of roundabout. So like in 2019, I did like a little personal watch project for myself where I went back and watched a lot of Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. And amongst those movies, I watched Jean-Claude Van Damme in Hard Target, the John Woo movie that is just a fucking classic. This year, when I was thinking about Hard Target, which I still love, it is an undeniable movie, I was reading about it and I discovered that Sam Raimi had a strong connection to the movie, as the studio kept Raimi on set during the entire film because they didn't fully trust John Woo to direct an American movie. And that kind of had me revisiting some old Raimi flicks, and I wound up checking out 1995's The Quick and the Dead for the first time ever. And this movie rips. Are you kidding me? An over-the-top neo-western with the plot dynamics of an anime and all the ridiculous Raimi-inflected carnage you could want? All the goddamn crash zooms and wild camera work, a young Leonardo DiCaprio, an underrated Sharon Stone performance, young Russell Crowe, fucking Gene Hackman, just, what a picture.
What a picture. What a picture.
Good picture.
It's an absolute must-see. I have no idea why more people don't talk about this one. This next film was made the year I was born in 1986, and I can't really give any kind of like analysis of it. I can just explain the logline to you, and you will see why you have to watch it. Even though I know for a fact that I watched this movie this year, I still have my doubts that it really exists. The film, Never Too Young to Die, stars John Stamos, yes, that John Stamos, as a man named Lance Stargrove, a high school gymnast whose father, Drew Stargrove, is played by George Lazenby and is a super spy. When hermaphrodite terrorist Velvet Von Ragnar, played by Gene Simmons of all people, kills his father, Lance has to team up with another secret agent played by ex-Prince Flame Vanity to, you know, stop the bad guys and save the world. This is one of the most unique schlockfests I've ever seen. It feels like if Haim Saban had hired Seijun Suzuki to adapt an episode of James Bond Jr. for Canadian television. Like, you may not end up liking this goofy-ass movie because, quite frankly, it's just not very good, but you have to witness it for yourself anyway. It is one of the strangest, most entertaining films I've ever watched. Fast forwarding in time and switching gears to something a little bit more traditional, we have to talk about a movie that came out while I was in high school, and that is 2000's Remember the Titans from director Boaz Yakin. I remember when this movie came out, and everyone I know and their dads loved this movie, but somehow I didn't get around to watching it until the final day of 2020. I'm sort of recreationally working my way through any Denzel Washington movies I've never seen. I think I only have like 4 or 5 left at this point, but I'm so glad I finally watched Remember the Titans. I'm not that into sports in real life, but I do love sports movies, especially movies about football and ones that work on such a traditional basic level. Denzel is his usual great self here as a black head coach hired to help integrate a Virginia high school football team, but Will Patton as the white coach he's replacing is aces too, and all of the young actors who play the players, from Ryan Gosling to Donald Faison to Wood Harris, all bring it. This is one of those rare, idealistic, semi-naive movies about how, like, playing football can end racism or whatever, and no matter how corny it can be at times, it's just so well made that it works. Like, look, I usually roll my eyes at movies like this, but I was hooting and hollering throughout the entire film in a way almost no other movies I watched this past year could inspire. God forbid you're one of the, like, 5 people who's never seen this. You should definitely change that. And finally, the last movie on this list is the wildest, weirdest, most what the fuck movie I've watched all year. That movie is Blood Diner. I got hip to this movie from my friend Justin from Late Fees, the head of the RNC Radio podcast network, and I am never going to be able to repay this man for introducing me to this ridiculous film. I chose this movie to end my Hooptober run in October when I was watching a bunch of horror films, and it did not disappoint. The basics of Blood Diner? Well, it is about a pair of brothers who run a diner by day, and by night murder women to harvest their body parts to build an avatar of flesh for the Lemurian goddess Sheetar. Their deceased uncle Anwar, a serial killer, helps out as best he can, as he's only a brain in a jar. As I previously said in my Letterboxd review of this film, this is not an ironic review. I have literally never seen something with this much chaotic energy bursting at its cinematic seams. Usually when you watch weird movies or trasher pieces, it often feels like a happy accident of circumstance, ineptitude, and absurdity, like something magically occurred out of a random smattering of questionable creative decisions. But something like Blood Diner has to be art. Every single scene, every single cut, every composition, it's all tethered together with a maddening sense of authorial unpredictability. Director Jackie Kong and writer Michael Sogne pack every passing moment in this indescribable morass with ideas and images alternating between absolute hilarity and such specifically cruel carnage that it had to be intentional. To what end? Oh, I have absolutely no clue. If this was like a weird graphic novel I got at Small Press Expo or some strange European animated film, it would probably be celebrated for its eccentricities. But within the horror genre, it just seems like another weird, diluted splatterfest. But it also has such craven comedic timing, so many moments that I feel like they'd made me laugh till my insides burst if I was only calibrated to a slightly more fucked up wavelength. Of all the weird and crummy movies that develop outsized cult followings and garner hastily made Kickstarter-funded hagiographies, how has such infamy passed Blood Diner by?
Easy, buddy. Take it easy.
His steak is as horny and now she's dead!
Look, it's on Hulu. Please watch Blood Diner. Forget the other 9 movies I talked about in this video. They're fine. They're good. Whatever. But if you have access to Hulu and you have access to Blood Diner and you do not watch Blood Diner, you're missing out. This movie needs to be experienced. All hail Sheetar. So yeah, 10 movies that I liked in 2020 that you guys should watch. I'll have links in the description below about like where you can find most of them, I guess. And yeah, like they're fun. If you guys have seen these movies already and you have thoughts on them, tell me about it in the comments below. If there's anything you watched for the first time this year that you really like, tell me about that as well. I always am looking for new things to watch because the next couple of months don't have like a lot of new movies to check out. So I'd like a little bit of variety myself. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not subscribed, hit the little bell icon to get notifications when I put out new videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hope everyone's staying safe, being good to yourselves and each other, and wearing your masks. Sleepy Joe says you have to now, so, you know, let's do it.